I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And oh boy, what a big day for Chad Daybell in his trial. It was a Daybell day out in Boise, Idaho. Chad Daybell accused of murdering his wife and his new wife's children. But let's focus on him accused of murdering his wife. So who took the stand today? Well, we're in the defense case. The children. Chad Daybell's children taking the stand. Let's go right out to the courthouse in Boise, Idaho. Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft is there and joins us live tonight. Kelly, wow, 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 what a big day. This is something that we obviously didn't see or hear in Lori's case. So let's start first with Chad's daughter, Emma, who took the stand today. Pretty explosive testimony.
Well, good evening to you, Vinny. Yes, she was refuting every single point made by the state. So we heard from nearly 68 witnesses in the state's case talking about things of Tammy Daybell's health, how she was a healthy 49-year-old woman, how Chad wanted her to increase her life insurance so he then could get $80,000 if something were to happen to her, about her Fitbit and how she was so active and took so many steps. Emma on the stand talked about all of this stuff, saying, no, that's really not the case. That's not what took place. Also, the wind direction. That was one of the bombshells that we heard as the state put on its case against Chad Daybell, talking about this search that was done on an account belonging to Chad Daybell, about the location, the wind direction. This was on September 8th, one day before authorities believe that Tylee Ryan was burned and buried in his backyard. On the stand today, Emma said she is the one that performed that wind search. Let's listen to some of that testimony.
There was some testimony about a Google search for south-southwest wind, and that would have been on 9/8 of 19. Do you recall that?
I do.
And was that your father who did that search?
That was me.
And what was the purpose of doing that search?
I saw a rainstorm. We were planning an outdoor event, and I wanted to know if those clouds were coming our way. The weather forecast for where we live in Rexburg is sometimes inaccurate because we don't live in Rexburg. So I was trying to be an amateur meteorologist, and the weather app said it was coming from the south-southwest, and I didn't know if that meant it was coming or going from the southwest. And so I did a Google search on the desktop computer that my parents kept in the living room.
So that was a pretty big moment inside the courtroom when she was saying that she is the one that did that wind search. Also, John Pryor asked her about the relationship that her father had with Lori and when she found out about it. And she said that she found out about it after he was arrested. She acknowledged on the stand today that, yes, that relationship was an inappropriate relationship. She then talked about a trip that the family took to Knoxberry Farm and how Lori Vallow ended up meeting them there at a later date. And during a conversation that she, Emma, had with her father, she did talk about Lori's children and if they were safe, where were they? Let's listen to a bit of that testimony.
So it's your understanding that at the Knott's Berry Farm trip, Lori Vallow came from another direction. Is that correct?
Yes.
She didn't participate in the travel plans with you to California. Is that correct?
Yes.
At any time, without telling me what she said, was the topic of the location of the children discussed with her?
Yes.
Okay. At any time, did you and your father ever discuss his knowledge of where the children might be?
Yes.
Okay. What do you understand your father's knowledge of where the children were located during the time that investigators were looking for them?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for hearsay.
Overruled. Go ahead.
From my understanding, and from I was told That the children were in a safe place.
Okay. And was that understanding through your discussions with your dad?
Yes.
So, Vinny, there you have it. She's putting out all of this testimony, again, taking responsibility for a lot of the things that the state is kind of inferring that Chad Daybell is responsible for, and also saying that her dad really getting out there that her dad, according to her dad, the children were safe and he thought they were safe.
Yeah, the way all that's coming in, Chad Daybell doesn't have to testify. I mean, they're getting in a lot of information that you would usually need the defendant to testify to. Pretty well done by John Pryor and the defense there, but let's talk about cross-examination.
Vinny, when watching this, you have to wonder how many points the state actually gained on the cross-examination. They were trying, no doubt. And even when John had Emma on the stand and he was doing his direct, the state continually was objecting, hearsay, objection, etc. But it really wasn't working too well. John Pryor would just find another way around it. But some of the other things that were talked about were this video that was played during the state's case, but then they also played it today when the state was doing the cross-examination of Emma. This is the video when Chad Daybell is inside his patrol car. So now, inside the patrol car. So now the children have been found. The remains of the children have been found buried on Chad Daybell's property. It's an emotional moment between Chad Daybell and his daughter Emma. He's telling Emma that he's never coming back. The state then asks if Chad Daybell told Emma the things that she should be telling authorities. Let's listen to that testimony.
Do you recall visiting with your dad as well?
Yes.
Do you recall a visit on around November 23rd of last year?
Not specifically.
Do you recall having a visit where you and your dad talked about that 5K race?
Yes.
And do you recall your dad telling you that you might want to say certain things?
No.
You don't recall that?
No.
Do you recall then talking about a race in 2013?
Yes.
You recall your dad saying, once again, maybe say that?
No.
Do you recall your dad talking to you about the one that exercised with you at Zumba that Tammy wasn't able to keep up? She would just make up her own moves. Do you recall your dad telling you that?
No.
But you've had a lot of visits with your dad.
Yes.
So it may be hard to remember everything he's told you.
He's never told me to say anything.
So Emma was not taking the bait there. She remained calm with the same voice inflections that she had on direct and then on cross-examination. So she held up pretty well on the stand. How jurors were taking her testimony, there was a lot of note-taking today inside the courtroom, and obviously a lot of people wanted to get in and see the testimony of both children. It was a packed courtroom and there weren't enough seats for all the people that wanted to get in, Vinny.
I could imagine. Okay. How about Chad's son, Garth, who was there that night or the morning when Mom was discovered? Tammy.
He was there, and he talked about being in his bedroom, walking past his parents' bedroom, noticing his mom and dad inside the bed. He said that he heard his dad snoring. He said he was up till about 3 a.m. He was watching YouTube videos, but then he heard a thump and his dad asking him to come help him. So let's listen to that testimony.
How were you awoken?
I heard my dad saying, Garth, get up. I need help.
Okay.
And I got out of bed and ran over to help.
And then when you walked into your parents' bedroom, what exactly did you observe?
I observed my mother had rolled partially out of bed with her legs entangled in the sheets. And my instinct was, oh, she needs help. So I immediately grabbed her by the shoulders and lifted her up back into the bed.
Okay. And at that point, you felt her arms were cold?
Yeah, I felt she was cold and stiff, and
okay.
And she was gray, and I realized she's not been breathing.
Okay. Okay. And at some point between the time you got home at 1 o'clock and the time you went to sleep at about 3 o'clock, did you hear anything or any indication that there was any kind of sound or struggle?
I heard nothing.
Okay. And would you agree that it's close enough that if there was some kind of a struggle or a fight or anything that you would have heard it?
I would have definitely heard it.
And now on cross-examination, the state really tried to call Garth out, claiming that he had been telling inconsistent stories about that night, that his mother died, that he allegedly had told two people, one woman is now his wife, so girlfriend at the time, that he saw his mother on the couch that night, not in the bed. But he at first said something that he went and backtracked on. But let's listen to that testimony.
Do you recall talking to an individual named Micaiah Bagelin and telling him you found your mom dead in her bed and your dad gone?
I don't recall talking to him about that.
Do you recall talking to Cara Briggs, who's now Garth Daybell, and Emma Moss about finding your mom on the couch?
I told Kara. She's now my wife.
Do you recall telling Cara and or Emma about finding your mom on the couch?
I did not tell them that she was on the couch.
Yeah, so at first he had said that he did say she was on the couch, his mother, but then he went back and he said that that was the night before when I was talking about my mom being on the couch. So interesting to hear from the children. Vinny, of course, very important testimony for the defense and how they've lined up their witnesses right out of the gate this morning, calling Emma and then Garth and refuting a lot of the state's theory so far, attempting to.
Yeah, and the demeanor very different than what we're seeing in a lot of cases, including the Karen Reed case on the other side of the country. I mean, it's a whole different situation in there. Fascinating to see, and we'll see what the jury thinks of this testimony. Thanks so much, Kelly Craft in Boise. What does the think tank think about this tonight? Let's bring him in. Joining us tonight, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Al Wunsch III. Also with us, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crossland and family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. Great to see everyone tonight. Al, it happens all the time in spousal murder cases that I've covered through the years, that the children, regardless of age, whether they're adult or smaller children, they never want to believe, 9 times out of 10, 19 times out of 20, that the surviving spouse is responsible for the murder of their mom or dad. And in this case, it's clear. It's clear they don't believe dad did anything here.
Well, I'd seen them interviewed prior, probably, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. It was 2020 that they had been interviewed. And they were adamant, steadfast and adamant, that their father had nothing to do with the death of those two children, and she had nothing to do with the death of their mom. So I wouldn't expect that their testimony would be anything different. And, let's take it for where it comes from. I mean, this is the children. So, you've got a sort of an interested witness who's up there and giving testimony that is refuting point by point what was put up by the prosecutor's office. I think a jury's going to be somewhat doubtful as to the veracity. I think that they're going to be looking at them. I think they were very well rehearsed with regards to how their testimony came across. And I give them credit for that because they were poised throughout the entire time. But they seem to be very well rehearsed. So how much weight do you give them? I think it's a tough call. I mean, I just think that anybody wants their dad to be found not guilty. They want him home, and they want to be a family again. So
Regardless of the evidence, there could be DNA. They generally still don't believe it. Darnell, watching this today, it looks like Chad doesn't have to testify anymore. The kids have basically provided all those filling in those gaps that so he doesn't have to.
Absolutely, and he had to have been listening very keenly, because the minute he testifies and goes contrary to what they said, then that opens the door for the prosecution to slide right in. So typically you want to testify in these cases because the jury wants to hear from you. They want to hear what happened here. But now the kids testified and they did such a darn good job. This might be a toss-up. It might be best for him to just ride this one out.
Jennifer Brandt, your thoughts about Chad Daybell's son, Chad Daybell's daughter testifying and basically, you know, refuting actual evidence from the state, like refuting it.
Right. I mean, I agree with everything that Ellen Darnell said, but I also think it's really interesting that the kids are willing to get up there and testify in favor of their father when it's their own mother who's dead. I mean, who they were talking about. So I think that makes it even more convincing because unlike some cases where maybe it's a third party, they're talking about losing their mom. So, and they're really defending their dad and saying it wasn't him. So it's very convincing. But I do think that the jurors are still going to want to hear from Chad himself, even though the kids are doing a very good job of sort of filling in the blanks, as you said. I think ultimately we want to hear from him and hear his explanation for things. Without it, I think he's in trouble.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine what his testimony would be like. All right, the tank is with us the whole hour. I have to show you something, folks, that we noticed. I want to show you a photo. First of all, this is Tammy Daybell and her daughter Emma, who testified today. And this is when Tammy was alive. I mean, they look alike, like way alike. But then after the death of Tammy and Chad gets together with Lori, we noticed a change with Emma, which was kind of strange. Like she changed the color of her hair. She looks, I mean, she could pass for Lori's daughter. Now she's not, but really a strange development in all this. No need to comment on it. It's just something we noticed. As a footnote, a lot of people are talking about it. That's part of the case. Al wants to say something, but I'm not going to let him.
So bad.
I'm not going to let him. I'm not going to let him. All right. Up next.
How did Tammy die? Did it have anything to do with the herbal remedies and supplements she took? We'll take a look.
Monday morning.
The ultimate betrayals.
Every episode of Accomplice to Murder.
Spell was broken when the handcuffs went click.
Friends and family turning on each other.
What he was willing to do for $1 million.
But just who is the puppet?
She was a master manipulator.
And who's pulling the strings?
Accomplice to Murder with Vinnie Politan. Memorial Day Marathon. Next Monday morning, 8/7 Central.
Only on Court TV.
My own children were there. They testified that Tammy had been getting weaker and sick, and I begged her to go to the doctor. Her heart was failing her. She was physically falling apart, but she hates doctors, and she just passed away. That's how it happened. There were 2 coroners. They checked her out right there on the bed. All these conspiracy theories just make me sick to my stomach. Just absolutely sick. You just have to have faith, and this is not some sort of master plan. There's no way Lori and I could ever come up with this.
She just passed away. That's the defense case for the murder of Tammy Daybell, that she wasn't murdered, it wasn't homicide, it wasn't asphyxia. Those bruises on the wrist had nothing to do with it. The pink foam was not homicide. She just died of natural causes. And then today, Tammy's daughter, Emma, Chad's daughter, also testified and talked about some of the health issues that her mother was having. Let's take a listen.
Her health started declining. I was really worried about it. She'd always been one to be able to meet the demands of daily life without being exhausted. And she started going to bed at before dinner some nights. It would be 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. And she would sleep in too if given the opportunity. So suddenly needing to sleep a lot was very confusing to me.
Were you aware of any other health maladies that your mother may have suffered from?
She had anemia.
Okay. Were you aware of any medications that your mother may have taken?
She preferred herbal supplements. She did take the generic form of the medication Prozac.
Okay.
That was the only prescribed medication that she regularly took.
Were there any non-prescription medications or herbs or supplements that you're aware of?
Oh, definitely. She really liked using colloidal silver was her favorite. It's
Slow down for me. Colloidal silver?
colloidal silver. It's distilled water with particles of silver in it to the part per million. It tastes like you're drinking water out of a metal water bottle, and it can cure everything.
Okay, and
I say that with a smile because you really should go to the doctor instead of drinking.
Calls for speculation.
Go ahead.
Yep. She would use colloidal silver as an antiviral, is what she called it. So anytime she felt under the weather, she would take colloidal silver and she would.
This calls for hearsay.
Overruled. Go ahead.
I witnessed her drinking it, and she would encourage other people in our household to do so.
Were there other things that your mother did in terms of remedies to resolve other issues she may have had?
She bruised really easily, and she used arnica gel.
Okay.
Arnica is a plant that helps with bruising. She had it in gel form.
And when you say she bruised easily, can you elaborate on that?
If she were to bump her hip on the counter when she was walking by, she would get a massive bruise from that. Even things like carrying a heavier load of groceries where the bag pressed on her arm would leave a bruise.
At any time were you present when your mother discussed any of her health issues with other members of the school staff?
Any chance that I got to, I would go visit her in her classroom. And I never observed her talking about her health with our coworkers.
I want to talk a little bit about the book fair on the 18th and the preparations that were involved. Did you personally observe anything as far as your mother preparing for the book fair?
She loaded her personal belongings in boxes and loaded them heavier than perhaps she should have, because I observed her walking down the hallway and she was resting the box against her body on her arms, holding it back and walking with a lot of effort.
Did your mother participate in that 5K race?
She did not.
There was a discussion about some previous testimony about someone observing her. I believe it was a principal observing her crossing the finish line. Do you have any personal observations about what you saw that day?
My mother may have walked across the finish line while helping with the race administration. She was not entered as a participant, and she did not go the entire distance. There were some people at the end of the race who were going very slowly, and a group of people walked with them to encourage them to finish. And she may have been with that group, although I don't remember seeing her.
All right, we've got something to unpack here. Let's bring in a special guest, board-certified forensic pathologist, Dr. Priya Banerjee. All right, Dr. Banerjee, let me start with colloidal silver. That's the headline, colloidal silver. Is that going to kill you?
It's not something I've ever seen prescribed. I think I've heard of it in esoteric uses, non-prescription uses. I don't think it'll kill you. We know from the autopsy she was strangled, asphyxia, she has those marks. I find every explanation she gave today very convenient.
Well, yeah, the other one is she bruises very easily. So the bruising on the wrist, could it be from holding a box? And what type of person bruises easily? Is it sign of some condition or failing health?
Honestly, in an adult, I would worry. By now, she should know that she has a genetic disorder if she did, like a clotting problem. But other than that, new bruises, easy bruises, I would think you have to work up for cancer. Something that's affecting your blood cells and why your platelets, which are your clotting cells or your liver, suddenly aren't working for you to form spots of bleeding, which is a bruise under the skin. It all seems too convenient. But honestly, as a mom, if I hit my hip, I'll get a bruise too. I don't know that it's easy. You're always doing something, carrying something, okay, but the chest and the wrists, like where the bruises were a little too convenient. And now she's trying to explain it away with boxes of books. It just seems too convenient. Call me a cynic.
And again, anything, the cream that she's putting on her body, is any of that stuff going to cause what happened to Tammy Daybell?
No. So arnica is actually one of those Ayurvedic type remedies. I remember my mom using it, my grandma. So it's a plant-based extract gel. I've heard people use it for arthritis or muscle rub. How effective it is, I don't know. But it's in all the thousands of autopsies I've done, I've never seen it implicated, detected, any kind of overdose. And these are all, like, that's a topical remedy. I know she's talking about the silver being ingested, put in a drink and ingested, but arnica is just a topical remedy. So you shouldn't even really get absorption of that.
Dr. Priya Banerjee, thank you for your expertise. And we'll see you again very soon. Let's bring back in our think tank, Al Wunsch, Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt. Darnell, she just passed away. Can that be sold to this jury in Boise, that Tammy Daybell, it just happens. She just passed away. She didn't like to go to see the doctor. She should have gone to the doctor. She didn't go, so she passed away.
Well, yeah, it can be sold to jury, except you have to explain the gunshot wound to the head, which we don't have here. That's by examination, by extrapolation. So the idea here is, obviously, I think the daughter was convincing. But as the pathologist just said, if there's an autopsy that says death from asphyxiation, then all that, she's bruising, she's not in good health, all that stuff, you still got to talk about how, if asphyxiation means choking or something around a person's neck to the point that they can't breathe anymore, all that bad health talk is one thing, but how do you explain this? And so I think that's where the problem still comes in.
Jennifer, how do you think this is going to play to a jury?
Well, I agree with Darnell. I mean, once they get the autopsy report and show that it's asphyxiation, hard to say that one. I think that all this testimony kind of just, it's his daughter, it's his daughter defending her dad, and I think that's what it's going to appear as, and that's what we're starting to see, because she's really not explaining how there was bruising around the neck or how her mom stopped breathing, and I don't think just these health problems that she's talking about seem to fit what actually happened and why Tammy Daybell actually died. So I think she's going to have a problem explaining that, not to mention the Lori Vallow's two children. So, yeah, I think it's an uphill battle.
I'm looking behind Al. Is that a bottle of colloidal silver behind you, Al?
I'll never tell.
Right. What does the jury do with this? Are they going to believe this was death by colloidal silver, or are they going to listen to what the pathologist said here?
Well, scripturally, okay, the Mormons believe that, and this is a quote, that the sick should be nourished with all tenderness, with herbs and mild food. So that's straight from the Mormon teachings with regards to same. Now, the colloidal silver situation is kind of bizarre, and a prolonged use of it can lead to discoloration of your skin, and it can make you, like get like almost a gray look on your skin. And anemia, okay, which I think they said she had, can lead to to easy bruising of one's body. So, you kind of throw these things in there that colloidal silver is going to make her look sick. It may also make her not able to function properly due to the fact that she's got this buildup of silver in her system. It's a bizarre thing, but these herbs and that kind of stuff is within keeping in the Mormon tradition.
All right, stay where you are, folks. When we come back, we're going to talk about Chad's daughter Emma talking about some religious beliefs. That's next.
Was Tammy connected to the prophecies of Chad? Did she take part in his beliefs about lightness and darkness? Did she believe in Chad?
Your dad ever talked to you about death percentages?
Yes.
Did your dad ever talk to you about people being close to death?
Yes.
Do you recall any specific people your dad talked to you about being close to death?
Yes.
And who was that?
Well, my mom was one of the people, but it was not death hurt so much as how connected your spirit was to your body. My mom would feel lightheaded and say she didn't feel quite connected to herself, and they would reconnect her spirit to her body.
When your dad would talk to you about castings, did he explain to you anything about the body having to die?
No.
Explain anything to you about the body having to be destroyed?
No.
And again, didn't talk to you about zombies?
No.
That's Chad and Tammy Daybell's daughter, Emma, testifying for the defense, now getting into some of the beliefs. Let's take a listen to a little bit more here, talking about good and evil, darkness and lightness. Let's watch.
There's been some discussion about the idea of light and dark. Can you describe to me what you understand to be the concept of light and dark?
The phrases good and evil would be talking about your actions, what you chose to do, where light and dark would be talking about your motivations. Light, it means that you're acting selflessly like the Savior would be, and dark means that you're selfish, focusing inward like Satan would be.
Okay, was this something that your mother, from your discussions with your family, shared with your father in terms of her beliefs?
Yes.
So would it be fair to say that your mother's beliefs, to your knowledge, were also of the fundamental or traditional node?
Probably more so than him.
Okay. Did she ever have discussions about putting numbers, death percentages or numbers, whether how light and how dark a person would be?
Yes.
Did she do that frequently?
Yes.
Okay. Was it particularly about anybody, or was it as her day-to-day activities she would make comments about that?
As she came across people and observed things, she would mention it.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
All right, joining us now, religious cult expert, retired police commander, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, and author of the book Deceived, Mike King is with us. Mike, what are your thoughts of Chad's daughter, Emma, describing her mom's beliefs? And how do you see that in the total picture here?
It kind of makes perfect sense, doesn't it, Vinny? I mean, you think about these cult leaders, and the easiest prey for them is to try to indoctrinate family members first. And that's why you often see many of the family surrounding these cult leaders. The other thing is kind of interesting to me is the fact that these kids have probably been pretty pliable and taught throughout their whole life. Whether Tammy believed this or not, I don't know. But she wasn't the one texting to Lori Daybell and to Alex Cox and others that Tammy has reached a dark level and that this needed to happen and the casting needed to happen. So I look at all this as a bunch of really important theatrics that the defense is putting on. And I always get, I always feel a little more comfortable, Vinny, when they start attacking the process or the fact that law enforcement didn't tell the family about the exhumations or that mom never believed in any of this, because that tells me that they don't have a lot of other strong things to build their case on.
And what are your thoughts about the children's role in the beliefs of the father and the way that may or may not be impacting what they're saying on the stand?
Yeah, I'd love to see a psychologist get on and talk about the impact of what this trauma bonding that children go through when they lose one parent because another one had committed homicide, and now they risk the chance of losing another one. These kids don't want to lose their dad. They don't want to just believe that their father murdered their mother, and I think this makes them really poor witnesses. I agree 100% that they need to share. These are my experiences. These are the things that I observed. But you can see that they're a little bit of a combative witness as they're talking, and they're not happy with the other side in some regards because they felt like they were maybe misled a little by law enforcement officers who were trying to get information out of them. But I just think we need to take it as it is, that these are children of someone who has been allegedly committing some horrible acts, and they're facing some real trauma in their lives, and I just don't look at them as reliable witnesses.
And one final question, like 15 seconds here with you, Mike. As you look at Chad Daybell, do you think he was teaching his children the same thing? And do you think that they still believe in their father as this prophet?
Yeah, I think he absolutely was teaching them, Vinny, and I think he was trying to convince them. But it wasn't until he got with Lori Daybell and he started thinking, if I get rid of these problems, I'm going to have this prize of Lori Daybell, and I'm going to have money along the side. They gave testimony today, Garth and Emma, that suggested they don't believe in the things their dad believes. They called him a fundamentalist. They said it wasn't mainstream doctrine, and yet they have some pretty out there doctrine themselves.
Mike King, our time is short tonight, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Great to be with you.
Let's bring back in our think tank Al Wunsch, Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt. Al, your thoughts about the role that religion overall is going to play in here and the way that the daughter is describing her mom's beliefs. You know, this lightness and darkness has been such a big theme for prosecutors, but here she is saying, yeah, mom was on board with all this. Well,
the lightness and darkness is a tenet of Mormonism. Okay, so that is something that is in their religion. The point is that what Chad did is he took it, he bastardized it to the process where he has made it that if you get to a certain dark point, you need to be eliminated in order to have the light come in. And that's how he justifies, you know, what happened with these children and what happened with Tammy. So you've got a scenario where the religion, you know, they said that their father was a fundamentalist whose religion goes back 100 years, you know, to the days of Brigham Young and John Smith, and that they don't have necessarily that. But the tenet, as I said, light and darkness is there. So it's just the point, and, you know, like I look at it as like chilling when Chad Daybell says to them, oh, no, the children are safe. Yeah, they're safe because they have now been executed and their spirits are now free, and they're with Jesus.
Jennifer, what do you think of the way the religion is going to weave its way in front of this jury?
Well, it's important to explain away a lot of things and to show, you know, Chad was the prophet. So, of course, religion is going to play a big part in this. But I found this testimony from the daughter extremely disturbing because she's talking about her mother and her mother's beliefs and all of this, but we're not hearing from her mother, unfortunately, so we really don't know. I think this part of the testimony is completely unbelievable because she's just going on and on talking about what her mother, you know, believed or what she didn't believe, and who knows? All we know is that she's there defending her father, who had some very, very strong and very strange beliefs.
Darnell, you have 20 seconds.
Well, I'll use my seconds to say that I'm glad Al didn't start singing Ebony and Ivory because all this light and dark, I knew he was going to start blowing any moment now. But as it relates to the religious parts of it, I think it's very important for someone to explain to the jury what this Mormon stuff is all about. And if they don't, then they won't have the template.
Al Wunsch, Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt, awesome as always. We'll see you again soon.